Okay, so welcome back. We are in the middle of week 5 now. So it's the lecture 23rd lecture out of total we will have, it's a 12 weeks, every week 5. So we will have 60 lectures total. So we are in 23rd lecture. And as you know, this particular week, the focus, the topic, the big picture topic is on looking at the biological concepts. And within that, we are looking at different topics, subtopics. So in this particular video, we'll focus on some of the environmental health basics from a biological perspective, as well as looking at some of the sustainable development goals. So that's kind of our goal for this particular video for next 30 minutes. So let's look at some of the basics. So when we say environmental health basics, as you probably know, environmental health by itself is a program. There is an undergraduate programs in environmental health sciences. There are many universities around the world offer undergraduate program in environmental health sciences. And what we do there is we try to study the factors in environment and how it interacts with human health and other environmental species present. We looked into pollutants in air, water, and soil, which can be transferred to humans and other receptors. Through inhalation, ingestion. Inhalation means through the nose when you inhale. Ingestion is when you eat something or something gets ingested to your body, or absorption, which can through the skin and all that, and which may result in adverse health effect. That's what kind of big picture we worry about. So, and many of these aspects, the biological organisms act as an indicator organism sometimes, and sometimes they mediate many of these reactions, which causes the environmental pollution as well as which remediates the environmental pollution. So that's how they get really important. So if you look at the basic requirement for a healthy environment, we need clean air, water, and soil. So if we have clean air, clean water, clean soil, most of our problems from an environmental point of view actually is taken care of. And we need to have safe food, adequate food, a stable and global peaceful environment. So that's also important. So these are when we talk about healthy environment, these are the basic components of the healthy environment, where you need pollution free air, water, and soil, good food, safe food, adequate food, nutritious food, and then a stable, global, peaceful environment, so that we don't have to have any stress out for certain things. So that gives us a healthy environment. That's what we call a healthy environment. So if you look at the ecosystem as like in terms of biodiversity, when we talk about this like environmental biology or the biodiversity, there are different aspects here. We have in terms of the ecosystem services, which is coming essentially from Mother Earth, which has many biological activities going on there, and biodiversity is involved. Then we also have what is constituent of well-being. So in terms of well-being of humans, well-being of other species that is present in this particular planet, or maybe in any planet. So here when we are looking at, as you can, there are some, we have tried to look at the subcomponent of the ecosystem services on the left hand side, which is in the green color, and then we have looked into the constituents of well-being, which is in the blue color right here, and then the green color right there. And within this different constituents, what we are looking at, let's try to get that. So we are looking at subcomponents in terms of provisions, regulation, cultural aspect, some of the supporting like the nutrient cycle, soil formation, and all that. So we'll talk about sulfur, phosphorus, nitrogen, all those cycles. So this is on the big picture, we are looking at the life on earth, the biodiversity part. On the right hand side, we have constituents of well-being. Now when we talk about well-being, we are looking at security, we are looking at the basic material, we are looking at health, we are looking at the good social relation, and then freedom of choice and action is also there. Like you should have an opportunity to be able to achieve what an individual values are doing and being. And in between, if you can see, so we have ecosystem services on the left, constituents of well-being on the right, but then in between if you look at we also have a set of arrows, many arrows going around, and the thickness of arrows also changes, and the set of arrows also kind of changes there as well. So, what you are so what they have, the arrow color here, it's in terms of the arrow color, when it goes from it's essentially light shade and then the medium shade and the darker shade. That talks about potential for mediation by socio-economic factors. When it's low, it is light shaded. When it's medium, it is slightly darker. High, it's the darkest. And on the width, it's telling you the intensity of linkage between ecosystem services and human well-being. So when you look at strong, like a big arrow means a strong linkage between the ecosystem service and well-being. When you have, as the arrow sizes gets small, as the arrow thickness gets smaller, we go from the strong to medium to the weak in terms of the interrelation between the ecosystem service and well-being. And overall, it's looking at the link between the ecosystem service and various constituents of human well-being, and it is essentially coming from the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment done in 2005. So there where it was first described. Now let's look at individually what the different components are and try to make sense out of that. So in terms of ecosystem services, we are talking about provision. Provision means it's the food, water, wood, fiber, fuel. So those are the provisions we need for our day-to-day living. Regulation, there has to be certain rules and regulation in terms of climate regulation, flood regulation, disease regulation, water purification, cultural issues, aesthetic, spiritual, educational, recreational. So these are our cultural part, and then the supporting in terms of all those nitrogen cycle, nutrient cycle, soil formation, primary production. So this is the whole ecosystem services. Now on the constituent of well-being, we have the security, which is the personal safety, secure resources access, security from disasters, basic material for good life like adequate livelihood, like people should be able to find a job, sufficient nutritious food, shelter, access to goods, health, feeling well, feeling strength, being a healthy person, access to clean air and water, good social relations, social cohesion, people enjoy social gatherings and all that, mutual respect, and then ability to help others. So that's also important. Now if you look at the freedom of choice and action, which is the opportunity to be able to achieve what an individual values doing and being. So you can achieve certain things if you work towards that. Now in terms of the interrelation, as you can see, look at here, if those thick arrows from provisioning is related to health, as you can see over here. If you look at the provisioning part, it's a provisioning part, it's a nice big arrow which kind of goes into the health part, and which kind of makes sense. Regulation part has a nicely related with security. Then regulation also has relation with the health. Regulation also has a relation with basic material for good living. So regulation is kind of related to many of those aspects. Provisioning is also related to basic material for good living, for good life. So they are all interrelated. So to have ultimately what we want as part of but any environmental aspect courses or anything is what we want is a better life for people. That's the whole thing. Even for any say engineering or science, ultimately we want a better livelihood, better life for people, more healthy life, cleaner life, less pollution. So that's the big picture goal, and that's how they are all interrelated. Is trying to be this particular slide is trying to explain that to you. So I hope you kind of get some idea about that. So this biodiversity, which is the life on Earth, supports the well-being as well. So we need to get so the biological aspect is also very important. So in terms of trying to get into better life, better like a lifestyle, cleaner lifestyle, what are the areas we need to focus on? Water supply, we will talk about that, water supply and water treatment later on in this particular course. Wastewater treatment, waste management, which is again a huge problem. wastewater treatment. Actually, I think there is a parallel course rerunning on wastewater treatment right now, which one of our colleague, Professor Manoj Tiwari, offers that. Is running this semester itself. I think this might be the second or third time it is being rerun. Then waste management, again another course is running on waste management, which is offered by myself. It's the third time it is being running, but we'll talk about all these in a snapshot in this particular course as well, because this is an intro, like a big picture course. Then prevention, pollution of control of land pollution, vector control, food hygiene, air quality, environmental radiation, occupational health and safety, noise management. So, all these things needs to be looked into if you really want to achieve better kind of lively, better lifestyle, or I would say better quality of life for humans on this particular planet and for other species as well. So, part of it, some of these target areas will be covered in little bit detail later on in different weeks. So, that is the bottom line, and for all of these stuff, again the biological concept, as you will see, becomes important. So, environmental biology is very, very important area in which people have to work on. So, here as we talked about in the previous video as well, that the 2017 CPCB report shows that actually Ganga water is unsafe for even domestic purposes at several sites. So, as you can see in this particular picture, people are taking bath on the side of the river, and there is so much of pollution, so much of waste just on the side of the river. Next time when it rains, if the water rises, all these plastics and other things will get into the river, and they will create pollution. So, that's the problem we have. We need to stop polluting our river. That's a very much important. Now, in terms of the wastewater, when we look at the sewage and other stuff that is getting into the surface water, it's the bacteria which becomes a problem. Bacteria, what is the source of bacteria? It is the fecal matter. It's the fecal matter from the healthy person, like that carries more than 10 to the power of 10 bacteria per gram, and most of which are not bad, which are not pathogenic. Pathogenic or potentially pathogenic are normally absent from a healthy intestine unless infection is there. When infection occurs, large number of pathogenic bacteria will be passed into fecal matter, and thus allowing the spread of infection to others. Diarrhea is the most prevalent type of infection, while cholera is the worst form. So, diarrhea is very common, people getting diarrhea, and then cholera also becomes a problem. So, bacteria is present in the wastewater, types of pathogens which is there. Viruses, numerous viruses there which may infect humans, are passed in the fecal matter, 10 to the power of 9 fecal per gram. There are 5 groups of pathogenic extracted viruses. They are like adenovirus, enterovirus, including poliovirus, hepatitis A, reovirus, and diarrhea causing virus, especially rotavirus. So, this is a very common type of viruses which is there, shows up into the wastewater treatment plant. As we will look at when we talk about the wastewater treatment, we will talk about disinfection and all that. So, that is why these disinfection and other things are needed over there. Protozoa can infect humans and cause diarrhea and dysentery. Infective forms of these protozoas are often passed as cysts in the fecal, and humans are infected when they ingest them. Only 3 species are considered to be pathogenic: Giardia lambilla, Balandidium coli, and Eta amoebia, like Eta amoebia histolytica. So, you don't have to worry too much about remembering the name. We have given you just later on, if you are interested, you can learn more about that. But so there are 3 types of protozoa which creates problem. It's a pathogenic. Then we have helminths, which are the many species of parasitic worms that have human host. Some can cause serious illness. Ones that passes eggs and larval form in the excreta are of importance in considering wastewater use. So, this becomes an issue there. Then we also get some waterborne disease in terms of the viral fever, viral that you hear, that viral has which could be hepatitis A. Serious form could have hepatitis A, hepatitis C, rotavirus, diarrhea, etc. Bacterial, they cause typhoid or paratyphoid fever. bacillary dysentery, cholera, E. coli cholera as well, E. coli diarrhea, sorry, E. coli diarrhea. Protozoal is amphibiosis and giardiasis. So that's based on coming from protozoa. Helminthic has a roundworm, threadworm, and hydatid disease. So there are these are all waterborne because the water is not treated well, the fecal matter getting into the water. So these are the reason why those wash campaign, water and sanitation campaign, hand wash, you should wash your hand all the time, not to get infected. Water, surface water with which gets untreated sewage, that becomes a problem. People, when if you heat the water up, many people in their houses heat the water, then cool it and drink it. If you heat it, most of these viral viruses, bacteria and protozoa, they get killed. So it's if you boil the water, and that's we used to do the boiling. Water filters also help because especially UV or disinfection some you have, so that helps in terms of removing those. So, but if these are the causes of concern in terms of if you have untreated sewage or partially treated sewage making way to surface water, which is the source of drinking water, or any human contact. So, if you look at concentration of microorganism which is there in 1 liter of wastewater. So, it is in log scale where it is from the WHO, which is the World Health Organization. It is coming from their safe use guidelines for the safe use of wastewater, excreta and grey water. So, as you can see in the number of scales which is in the log scale here at the bottom, it has been highlighted. So, this in log scale. So, if you have almost a million, we have this is what, like we have this the sizes given over here. So, 10 to 100 to 1000 to 10,000, 100,000 and as close to 1 million. So, as you can see over here, for most part if you look at different types of like microorganisms in 1 liter of water, there are several they are present. So, we get rotavirus, enterovirus, Vibrio cholerae, which causes cholera, salmonella, different types of other like organisms, Cryptosporidium, Entomoeba, Giardia. So, these are all causes this becomes cause of concern. So, there is good number of organisms that does show up in the wastewater. So that is kind of talking about that wastewater and how these different organisms are there, which becomes a issue in terms of usage of wastewater. Now, in terms of as I mentioned that in this particular case, we will in this particular video we will also like to talk a little bit about the sustainable development goals. Now, especially related to this aspect. So, as we have been talking about in terms of different bacterial species, bacterial infection, one of the place where we get most of these infection coming in is the water. This we have been talking about in last several minutes. So, this water becomes it's access to water and then issues of sanitation. If you do not have the fecal matter will get into the surface water if the sanitation is not proper. Fecal matter can get into groundwater is getting into the part of the constituents of fecal matter is also getting into the groundwater, especially if you are closer to a tube well. So, if you are say if you designed a toilet and the design is not proper, and if your sewage is going untreated into the subsurface into below, then and you have a nearby a tube well, so things may become actually much worse than what it was earlier. So, proper design of those toilet for sanitation facilities is very important. So, there is a lot of debate on that aspect. Say for example, you have your what is known as from the toilet, if you have the soak pit, which is as per that Clean India mission, that such we have made several soak pit kind of toilets. So, it's those toilet doesn't have much uh, treatment. So you have two tanks. Basically, you have a two tank system where things goes from one tank to the another tank. So this one is not there. So you get things will first come in here. When this get filled up, it starts going over there, and meanwhile this gets treated. But there is hardly anything there. You have some. It's not even a septic tank, so it's mostly like a soak pit. So there is a every chance that untreated sewage can go into the subsurface. Now, if you have this area where your groundwater is right here, and then you have you have a well now where you are pumping water out from your well. So now this has a chance to make way to the well or to the well water as well, and there is some incidents of some evidence of that is already coming in. So we have to really look at that toilet design to make sure the toilet that we are making is really going to help. It's not that we are solving one problem but creating another, which has happened in the past, especially in the case of arsenic in Bangladesh. So we don't want to do that same mistake. So hopefully we'll look at the design of the toilet, which is part of the sanitation. So in terms of the goal, it's a goal number 6, which says clean water and sanitation, and it ensures availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Access to water, access to sanitation, proper design of the sanitation. Water makes the clean water, safe water. That's what this whole goal tries to focus on. And as you saw just in last few slides, if it's an unclean water, it can lead to many waterborne disease. So we have to look at the clean water aspect, water quality aspect very carefully. So then it's important because as you 1.5 billion people have no sanitation facility at their health or no sanitation service at their health facility. So there is no sanitation, 1.5 billion, which is out of 7 point some billion. So nearly 20% of the people doesn't have access to sanitation service. Cholera is severe diarrheal disease that can kill within hours, but it can be treated. So cholera is again waterborne disease. If we have proper water and sanitation practices, cholera and these kind of disease should not happen. So that's where we need we need the intervention to make sure we have proper water and proper sanitation facility. Every year 1 million plus babies and their mother die due to unclean birth. So that's another big issue, getting infection during the birth. We're talking about 1 million people, like 1 million 10 lakhs. If you think about like New Zealand, which was very close to winning the World Cup this year, we're talking about cricket. So their population is around 5 million people, 5 to 5.5 million people. So if you talk about 1 million, that means 20% of the New Zealand population is dying every year because of not having proper cleanliness during the birth of the baby. So that's a big shame actually on us as a global community, that those kind of death. On one hand, we are going to Mars, we are going to moon, we are making so big stuff. On the other hand, we cannot have a safe birth of babies so that moms don't die, babies don't die. I don't know what development we really want. But every year 1 million plus babies and their mother die due to unclean birth. And that's really, as I said, that requires a lot of hygienic practices, a lot of again water, sanitation, hygiene. They become very important. And many of these diseases because of the bacterial infection that is happening to those during that process, and those bacterial infection that we talked about. 1 in 4 health facilities lack basic water services. So that's again a huge issue. Like 25% of health facilities, health clinics don't have basic water. So if they don't have basic water, how can they other things will get compromised. So, the sanitation will get compromised, water quality will get compromised, you will have all that, the cleanliness will get compromised. So, if you do not have basic water services in these facilities, there is an issue. So, those are, and they are all related to the environmental health issues, to the biological organisms creating problem, because they get a field, isn't it? They get a field time. So, some of those viruses, bacteria, and they grow in those environment, in that unclean environment, and they grow and create lots of problem and lots of deaths happening as well. Millions of women give birth in facilities without clean water, and mostly probably you will see more these things in Asia, Africa, and maybe in some South American countries too. So, or Eastern European countries, maybe, I am not sure, but it's mostly poorer countries. Millions of women are giving birth in facilities without clean water. So, if you don't have clean water, you have every chance to get this bacterial infection, because things will not be clean, and that hygiene and other things cannot be maintained without having clean water. So, these are the issues that needs to be looked into, and these are the issues that people like you, when you graduate, what kind of job you do, you may have a say in trying to fix some of these problems. Access to, if you look at the access to sanitation facilities, in terms of number of years, this talks about in 2009, and there are 4 different arrows here. One is improved facilities that ensures hygienic separation of human excreta from human contact, includes connection to a piped sewer system, septic tank, or pit latrines. So, that is the improved. Shared means sanitation facility of an otherwise acceptable type, shared between 2 or more households. Unimproved, do not ensure hygiene separation, open defecation in field, forests, bushes, and all that. So, we have 4 different categories right there, and if you look at in terms of types of sanitation facilities, the green color is the improved, yellow is shared, and this maroon color is unimproved. It's not, it's a gray, it's all that color is unimproved, and then black is open defecation. So, if you look at again South Asia, we still had a lot of open defecation. We had some like shared, some improved, and some unimproved as well. So, it's a cause of concern in terms of in terms of the impact. So, there are, as you can see, the access to sanitation facility changes from different places. Usually the rich countries, it's better, poorer countries, the things are not that good, but the issue stays that more and more people needs access to clean sanitation. Okay. So, there are certain population living in river basins where, let's stop here, we will start from the fresh water in the next video. So, we talked about the water and sanitation, where we looked at the sanitation facility. We started this particular video, as I said earlier, we will talk about some basic environmental health issues. We looked at some of those different biological organisms which creates problem in terms of water pollution, in terms of bacterial infections. We talked about sustainable development goals, and we started looking at water and sanitation and all that. So, so next we will talk about the water part, because that has a longer discussion there as well. So, again, thank you for taking this course, and I hope you are enjoying it so far. Any queries, any issues, post it on discussion forum, we will be happy to help, and see you again in the next video.